Greetings everyone, and welcome to another dungeon guide for Final Fantasy XIV. This will be the Tamtara Deepcroft, the second story dungeon. Once again, I will be playing a Dark Knight, and I will be tanking the dungeon, and I am playing with a group of players. So this one did not receive an update in patch 6.1. Personally, I think it should have. Of the dungeons, this was definitely the most annoying of the three. It still has some of its weird mechanics, and the layout is frustrating at times. Alright, so right away we have two enemies, nothing particularly special. It does show us the interesting layout, though. We are on a series of balconies and tunnels circling around a central platform. So our starting balcony doesn't have anything, but almost immediately you'll think, oh, well, I'll just run around in a circle. It's actually cut off. You'll notice right there is a break in the pathway, so you do have to take the tunnels. This dungeon does still have side passages in it, so you can get lost in there. I would recommend using an enlarged mini-map and paying attention to side rooms. Right now there's not a turn in the dungeon, but coming up, you'll start to have forks where you have to decide which direction you are going. Here comes the first one. I already have the map unlocked, so I know that it's just a side room, and experience as well has told me that. I'm going to take this moment once again to remind all the sprouts watching, for area of effect attacks like Quick Knock, you'll want to use them when it's 3 or more enemies. If it's 2 or less, just stick with your single target attacks. Alright, we go into this room, and there's only one exit, so can't get lost in here, but this is the first dungeon where an inexperienced tank may get lost. I just recommend following the route I take in this guide. Okay, one more mob pack, and I think we will be at the first boss. There are 4 bosses in this dungeon, which is a bit unusual, but back in A Realm Reborn, they weren't very consistent on size. Alright, for this one, you just need to defeat the 2 imps, the spellcaster, and then a demon will spawn. Alright, there's the demon. Just go ahead and attack him. He doesn't do anything of note. And they're not very strong. Again, I think this dungeon was a prime candidate for an update, but maybe they just didn't have the resources. Once the demon is done, you'll notice a glowing orb you can click on behind it, as well as the treasure chest. You will want to click on each of the orbs on the 3 boss platforms. There are 4 in total. There's 2 on the final platform. Go ahead and just pass on loot if you're higher level. That way anyone who needs it can pick it up. Given the difficulty I was having getting groups set up this morning, I am going to assume that most people are either using the duty support system or just aren't leveling low-level alts at the moment when I was recording. I did the 3 dungeons back to back, and I was waiting about 15 minutes between a dungeon as a tank. Alright, after the first boss, you will go down the tunnel. A little disoriented right now since I am recording this after the gameplay, but you want to take, basically you don't want to go the direction I went, or I'm pointing. Yeah, so take a right at the first tunnel. That'll lead you to another room. This will have the first of the extra treasure chests in here. I guess I should take a moment to explain the treasure chests. Each dungeon after the first boss will have treasure chests. For the most part, they drop additional gear and sometimes potion that can be rolled on in addition to the gear from the bosses. So if you're really lucky, you can get almost a full set of gear from just the single dungeon run. In the early dungeons, gear is shared across certain jobs, but in later dungeons, it will almost be job locked. Alright, second boss, it's 3 imps and 1 spellcaster and then another demon. Once again, nothing special. Click on the orb after you defeat the demon. I will note that some of the later post-A Realm Reborn dungeons do not drop gear, they drop tokens. That was an experimental phase that did not last. Anything that says antique, you can trade to a gear vendor, but at that point you'll want to just use your poetics. Once again, someone's still getting gear. Click on the orb. Alright, and then this is the easier one. Alright, and during this dungeon I decided, let's see how far down the Deepcroft goes. Turns out a place with deep in the name is accurate. And we also have a little mini bridge of Khazad-dûm we're coming up on now. Alright, just head down here, grab these mobs, take care of them real quick. Do let me know in the comments if you want to see these from a different point of view. For the most part, I have jobs that can handle all the Realm Reborn roles. Actually, I can go through Stormblood doing tank, DPS, or healer. For Shadowbringers, I am working on tanking and healing right now. I actually did get a decent amount of experience for my Dark Knight doing this, so probably by the time I get around to recording the level 40 dungeons, I'll be over level 80, and I'll be working on the Endwalker dungeons. Those will require a bit more information. This is another fork where people can get lost in the road. There is a treasure chest to the left, so if you're after the loot, you can go for it. Otherwise, you want to make a right and follow the path. This was a point where those Yarzun got aggroed. This is one of those spots where you can end up pulling multiple mobs if you're not careful when you are aggroing things. In this particular case, the healer, I think. Oh, right, the Reaper. The Reaper actually ended up pulling aggro. Okay, this is the part of the dungeon where things get a little weird. You see we just crossed the boss threshold, but there's this barrier blocking off the actual boss fight. So first we need to clean up these guards, and then we'll actually need to keep going down the path in order to get a cultist rosary to unlock the barrier. Get those cleaned up. So that's the barrier. You need the rosary to open it. At this point, it's just a straight shot to the rosary. There's no more branching paths. You do have to face 4 enemies here, so if you're a little concerned about, survivability, I would highly recommend not using cooldowns or anything important here because of what's following up almost directly after. At this tanking level, you only really have Bulwark, which is on a 120 second cooldown, I think. It would be on cooldown for over a minute, though, and that's the important part. Coming up on the penultimate boss, it is once again imps, a caster, and a demon. But this one has the most imps. And then this part is where you want to use your defensives, because I have seen many a tank just get absolutely destroyed here. Now, I'm using my defensives. I've already popped Rampart. If I remember correctly, I'm going to use... No, okay, I do not use that ability here, but we did get through the imps without too much trouble. The demon spawns just as before, and just take down the demon, and then you'll have to activate both orbs. I don't believe you have to do it simultaneously. Most groups just end up doing it that way because it's convenient. I will point out that yes, a treasure chest will drop. One more thing about the chests I wanted to point out, they do share loot tables with bosses, so it is possible to get duplicate items. So if, say, you've got 2 casters, you could get 2 casting items, so you could both get one. Alright, the lights were shining on this little orb, and it has revealed a Mind Flare, or whatever they call them in the Final Fantasy universe. The demons are honestly not something that's gotten too much attention in the modern story. There was a bit of bit work on them in Heavensward, but for the most part, the demons have not been a touched part of the story. Okay, this boss is a bit tricky. He's going to go invulnerable several times during the fight. you can see an inconspicuous imp in the background with a line going to the boss. DPS need to take that down every time it spawns. The boss will be invulnerable until they are defeated. Okay, continue fighting the boss. With the next imp, there will be ads spawning, so it'll be important for the tank to pick them up as they spawn so they don't hit the healer or the DPS. This is the most important job of a tank, is to prevent damage hitting the party and having it focused on themselves. Alright, a little AoE ability, just move out of that. Alright, this is the one that gets kind of ugly because it's 4 ads that are kind of spread out and 2 imps this time. So you have to take down both imps before you can damage the boss. As you can see, one of the mites was trying to get away, but I did get aggro before it got on the healer. Alright, after this you can finish off the boss, and that will be it for the Tamtara Deepcroft. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you in the next video, the Topperbell Mine.